Okay, so we are live and I'm going to start, and people who are late can figure it out for themselves. So today we're talking about a few things. They're all really interconnected and related. They're all to do with Pengerupukan. So everyone has heard about Ogoh-Ogoh at this point. Yeah, this is going to be happening on the 6th of March. It's going to be, so it'll be next week. It's that's the popular element that you've heard of, but really what's happening there is a bunch of other things all underneath that. And actually, Ogoh-Ogoh is quite a novelty compared to the rest of the traditions involved with Nyepi, because we all know that Nyepi has been happening since at least it's going to be 1941 in Balinese years, so 1,941 Balinese years ago. But Ogoh-Ogoh started in the 1980s, so it's not something that has always accompanied Nyepi and Pengerupukan. So we're going to get into some of the reasons for that, and some terminologies that we're going to have to memorize and understand in order to understand why Ogoh-Ogoh happens on Pengerupukan. So that's the word you really want to write down and memorize, is Pengerupukan. You'll see it spelled many different ways. I will accept it as long as it has that NG in there somewhere and it looks and sounds like Pengerupukan. Come on in. Okay, so we're just going to have an overview of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about Butakala. We're going to be talking about Mecaru, a type of ceremony that happens in Bali. We're going to be talking about Nguncang, a musical activity. We're going to be talking about Pengerupukan before there were Ogoh-Ogoh, before the 1980s. Pengerupukan after Ogoh-Ogoh, so Pengerupukan as it exists now. Sign both, yep. And then we're going to get into some modern issues and problems leading up to this very year and what's going on with Ogoh-Ogoh right now. And then we're going to kind of come up with our own conclusions and discussion afterwards. So at the end, we'll have time for questions, for our own discussion. Anyone has any of their own input and ideas related to it at the end, save it till the end and write it down for now. And then at the end, say it. Okay. So let's get into first. I put this one first because it's important to know. Sandikala. Sandikala is from 6 o'clock till 7 o'clock at night in Bali. And Sandikala is that twilight moment, that moment between the end of the day and the beginning of the night. It's an important thing to memorize and to know because that is considered the root of many myths. Many of the monster myths and myths of ghosts and things like that kind of come out of this time. Around the time of Sandikala, it is believed traditionally by the Balinese people that you should be in the home. So you can think of that as a way in terms of the social system, right? Social organization. It's a way of making people be at home at that time. Because then kind of, they'll be putting the kids to bed, things like that, getting the kids ready for bed, and it's a way of keeping the family together, right? You can think of it as a system of social organization in that. And then you can think of it as a system of knowledge with, in terms of the mythologies associated with it, which would be, the Butakala. This is where these stories of Butakala come from, is this moment of Sandikala. So Sandikala, simply memorize, we'll write that down on the board for you guys. This will be the first thing of many we'll write on the board. Sandikala. Sandikala. Sometimes it's spelled like this. And many different ways it's spelled. What it is it's 1800 hours to 1900 hours. And that is twilight. That moment between daytime and nighttime, when actually it's very interesting for me being from Canada, being this close to the equator and seeing how much longer that time kind of lasts for than it does where I come from, right? So that window is like in an hour here, It happens from 6 o'clock till 7 o'clock, and you can watch the sunset and watch the shapes of the shadows change, and you can see how the light, like there's this moment during Sandikala where you can see the light just kind of like changes to this like really iridescent aura glow that you can see, like you'll just be sitting there. I'm sure you've noticed it being here as long as you have, where you'll be sitting there talking to someone and then all of a sudden the lights change, right? It's like, whoa, it has this spooky feeling, right? Where it's not really, that doesn't really, from where I come from, doesn't really last as long as it does here, and maybe it's not as noticeable, or maybe it's that, it's the whole idea that I am here and I'm thinking about it because I'm researching it, right? So it could be that too. Whereas in Canada, it was very passive for me to think of that time of day, whereas here, being a researcher has become something I do actively as I'm thinking of these elements of the day and the way the day is organized.
Something like this.
Yeah, exactly, those colors, that you get exactly in that photo. That's good. Okay, so at that time it is believed that you should not go out of the house, right? That's because of the associations with mythologies, with different Butakala, different monsters. You have things like that, like Momadi and different kinds. There's all kinds of different ghosts and monsters, different stories associated with them, and they all kind of revolve around Sandikala and that time of night, or that time of day, because of that moment between the two, right? Which is interesting to note too, thinking of Rawabine Da, that balance, right, between day and night. There's that moment where it's exactly standing on the middle. And remember how we've always talked about Balinese people very much have one foot in both worlds. They're standing one in the world of Sukala and one in the world of Niskala, what you see and what you can't see, right? So keep that in mind as we kind of go through this this lecture today. And then, so now we have Butakala. Butakala, in English, we would think of as monsters, giants, ghosts, things like that, yeah? So in English, that's how we would refer to them. And then the Balinese acknowledge the existence of Butakala as sentient Niskala beings, right? So they're things that we can't necessarily see, but they do have a mind of their own and they are acting always. So which is why many ceremonies are held for Butakala. It's not always ceremonies are held for gods. It's not always that the ceremonies are for the gods. Sometimes the ceremonies are for the Butakala too. Because we have to make sure, the gods are happy, or God is happy, shall we say. We have to make sure God is happy. We have to make sure the monster is happy too, right? And we can see that, once again, coming back to Rawabine Da, and those two things we have inside of ourselves. Because we're all capable of being gods and monsters, and we kind of balance it, right? So that's an important, this whole idea of Ogoh-Ogoh and Pengerupukan revolves around this concept of Butakala and Sandikala. Okay, so they hold symbolic meanings, right? Because they hold symbolic meanings for the negative elements of personalities in humans and are manifest in artistic depictions, as you can see all throughout Balinese arts. You can see in painting, you can see in sculpture, you can see it everywhere. If you go to the art center, you see the one of the cobra and everything, right? Like you can see all sorts of different depictions in arts throughout Bali of the idea of Butakala, even though there's something that is of the Niskala realm, something that we don't actually see, we can't actually touch and feel with our hands. So I have here, I printed off from a website with the citation at the bottom, and I translated it. It's in my bibliography somewhere. I can't really read it because it's in blue right now. My eyes are really bad. But here's negative elements and positive elements, right? So we have at the top, you can see right here, white, and they actually have them associated with colors, which is very interesting because we've probably spoken about the different colors associated with cardinal directions too, right? And that's for your own information, right? But we have here, we have all of these different elements. Everything except for the first one, white, is considered a negative element of human personality, right? So we have chastity tainted by anger, sexual frustration, right? A negative element of the human personality. Anger, we have Angry because, once again, another form of sexual frustration, because anger because of our lust is not fulfilled, right? So there's lots of sexual frustration in these negative elements of humans. And then lust, which is that desire for sex without love, it's just that desire of sex. And then greed, represented by green. Black is jealousy, and jealousy isn't always, for Balinese people, jealousy isn't always considered jealous of someone else because of they have something we don't. That would be considered envy to Balinese people. Jealousy to Balinese people and Indonesian people in general, because the word cemburu is actually specifically referred to, how should we say it, sexual partnerships or non-sexual partnerships, relationships, right? But of the male-female nature, whereas that jealousy would be, say, if you have a girlfriend, and say you're a man and you have a girlfriend, and you're talking to another girl, when she gets jealous, it's because you're talking to the other girl, or for the opposite. When a man gets jealous that his girlfriend is talking to another man. That's what this jealousy would be. Or the idea of having extramarital relations and things like that spawns this idea of jealousy. Whereas envy would be being envious of someone having something that you don't have, which is the word iri, which people often use. And that would be the envy of someone having something that which we do not. So someone has a nice car, and I wish I had a nice car, and I don't have a nice car, and I'm envious of that. So it's jealousy and envy are considered very different things. Whereas in English, I know we use the terms very interchangeably, right? So jealousy, oh, you're just jealous because you're not me, right? They hate us because they ain't us, right? We like to say, you know? It's like, so it's yeah, remember that with these are just negative elements of the human personality, with the one positive element, which is holiness, right? Which is really that unattainable element of our personality. And I just brought this up because I thought it was interesting to think of the ways in which Butakala and depictions of Butakala can represent this kind of stuff. And you know these qualities that they have here represented by colors. You've noticed these colors can all kind of be associated with cardinal directions too, and then you can draw your own conclusions from that. And then, so continuing on, yeah, it's generally imagined as a magical creature that has a scary face, right? Their mouth, they have, they kind of look like me, maybe. I've often been told that. I need a drink. So yeah, they're a magical creature with a scary mouth, very scary face, large, extremely large, overemphasized features, things like that. These are what we could call manifestations of Butakala in artistic representation. So before we start looking at some artistic representations of Butakala, remember these three qualities of humans we've been talking about, right? Tiga sifat manusia, dewayo, manusayo, butayo, right? So then you have that Buddha is that element of Butakala. That is the monstrosities of human beings. We have manusayo, these are the humanists, our human-like qualities. And then dewayo is, quite obviously, dewa, God, right? The God-like qualities. These are kind of ways in philosophy that they are represented too. So we have budaya is the monstrous qualities of human beings. It could be, as artistic representations often depict, monstrous physical appearance that is manifest in monstrous actions and monstrous ways of thinking too. Okay, now we can see, let's start looking at some artistic depictions of Butakala. So we have Butakala in Wayang. Here we have two Wayang characters, and they are Butakala. You can see, look at their physical features, right? Look at the really long, gangly arms, and look at the fingers, the long fingernails that they have, right? And things like that. And the hand position too that they're in. You'll see many of the depictions of Butakala using this hand position, right? Things like that. And then you can also see they have animal qualities, right? The beak, as on that one, or on the other one, a giant, big, elongated nose, right? These are like, they're caricaturing the qualities of maybe that are considered negative or evil elements of human personalities. So here's Butakala in dance. This is my favorite and easiest way to get this one across, is that it's in dance. Well, you can look at Job Manis and Job Kras. On the one in the white is Job Manis. The red one is Job Kras. They are really easy to depict because they are a monster, right? Their character is a monster. Look at the long gangly fingernails and they're doing this, right? But what I really like about Job is that, especially with Job Manis, because remember there are two ways of describing Balinese movement in Balinese dance. You have Manis and Kras, right? Now there isn't really so much of it, you couldn't think of it as this is the whole philosophy of Balinese dance. They're really just a way of describing movement, right? Movement is Manis, right? You can have very Manis, smooth movements, or you can have Kras, really fast jerking motions like that, right? These are the two types. But with Job, they're both monsters or demons or Butakala, you can think of it as. So then, which one do you think would be harder? Probably the Job Manis dance, because Job Manis has to be Manis, but it still has to be a monster. I remember when I heard that, because I often, with Dendek, with my landlord's grandson, I often go to competitions. He's usually winning first place in Job Manis, first place in Job Kras for all over Bali. There's a whole competition circuit for many different dances, but especially these ones for young men as dancers of this genre. And I remember watching Pakade Surya, shoutouts, yeah, Pakade Surya. He was the jury of a competition. He was saying that about Job Manis. And it really like stayed in my mind, is that you have this dance where, sure, the movements are Manis, the movements are very fluid and smooth, but it's still a monster. And therein lies the rub. How do you depict that in your dance, that you're still a monster, but with Manis movements, right? It's like, so that's what makes it a really difficult dance to dance. So now you know, here is just one example. You can find many, right? Find many examples, especially in new creations, of, like the idea, the concept of Butakala in dance. And now here we have Ogoh-Ogoh, various effigies, right? Ogoh-Ogoh are effigies, or I guess an effigy would be a doll, right? But a really, really big one, right? So Ogoh-Ogoh are like effigies of Butakala. And you will have seen them, you guys have probably seen them everywhere that you're driving, right? Anytime you drive by a banyag. And now, until Pengerupukan, Hari Pengerupukan, until the day of the Ogoh-Ogoh procession, they will be every single day working 24 hours a day around the clock by youth groups of each banyag. Right? So these youth groups will be working 24 hours in shifts. There's your system of community organization too, because it's like, organizing the youth of a community into working 24 hours a day and learning about working in shifts and sharing a workload and organizing themselves in order to produce a very, very large scale work of art in a very short window of time. So there's, once again, you can work all of this into the 7 elements very easily. And I haven't graded all the tests yet, but I saw quite a few of you on the test from last time very easily are working those 7 elements in 3 social systems, which is good, because I want you to constantly be seeing that in everything you look at here, because it will really help you in kind of boiling down what you're seeing into terms that you can describe and terms that you can share, rather than just having that idea of, well, that's just the way it is, right? Because we're researchers. We can't say that's just the way it is, which is what many people, as a researcher in the field, I often encounter someone says, well, which means like that's just the way it is. That's just what people do, right? As a researcher, we can't accept that. So now we have these systems and these elements of culture. We can use that to show that it's not just the way it is. There are reasons for it, right? So we have these effigies. There's a lot more than, it's not just people do it, right? Okay. So now we've talked about Butakala, we've talked about Sandikala, when it's believed the Butakala come out, right? Now let's talk about a ceremony. Very, very important type of ceremony. This type of ceremony is called Buddha Yajna. So there are other ones that are for gods called Dewa Yajna, and this one is called Buddha Yajna. And this type of ceremony is performed in the home, but not just in the home. It's performed many places, right? But what's cool about it on the day of the Ogoh-Ogoh procession, Hari Pengerupukan, is performed all over Bali. All of Bali becomes one big Mecaru ceremony. And it happens in each individual home. They have a Mecaru at the time of Sandikala. So you can see we're kind of, they're following a timeline in the way I'm presenting the information, right? Everything here is related. We have the concept of Sandikala, Mutakala. Well, now we have this Mecaru ceremony at the moment of Sandikala. So when you look at Mecaru, it's used to restore and maintain, not just always to restore, but to maintain balances between humans and nature. It's a type of Buddha Yajna ceremony, and it's used to appease the Mutakala. And I've been to many of these types of ceremonies. And they have, so it's also called Buddha Yajna. It's a sacred ritual that is often held to harmonize the relationship between humans and the surrounding environment. Humans with nature, so as not to create opposition, so that mutual understanding and relationships are created in a manner conducive to the continuation of life. So, citation provided from something I translated from Info Budaya Bali, I think it was. And then there's many types of charu. Mecaru, so mecaru would be the verb, right? Ma, when you put ma at the beginning of it in Balinese, that M-E, it becomes verb, and then charu would just be the noun of it, right? But a lot of people will just say mecaru. And it's, I guess, honestly, an easier way to think of it is remember mecaru. Yeah. And so these ceremonies, they are held in places like, we're going to kind of go through this non-linearly, places like a yard, a house, a temple, sangha, which is the Barajan, the family temple. Remember from the Eisman reading about shrines and temples, the one that's in the home, right? Banjar, we know about the Banjar, right? The Banjar is the community organization that where all of the Ogoh-Ogoh are being built right now. In Desa Adat and throughout the whole island. The reason I went to number 3 first is because we're having one throughout the whole island. And the way they do this throughout the whole island is through doing it in every individual home. So on Pengerupukan Day, they have a Mecaru at every individual home. Mecaru have always involve animal sacrifice of some sort. So I've been at Mecaru where they sacrificed a dog, like a puppy, and they will bury it. So they'll dig a hole in the yard and bury the dog in the hole, or they will have multiple animal sacrifices. I've been to one where they sacrifice a dog, a duck, and a chicken, right? And then some smaller ones, they'll just sacrifice like a baby chick, like a chick. Right? There's usually an animal sacrifice involved in the Mecaru ceremony because it's to maintain the balance with nature, right? And the Bhutakala. So you can see this is how we have nature and Bhutakala relating. This is just kind of anecdotal from one of the Mecaru ceremonies I've been to. We have my friend's house. It got struck by lightning, what was it? 5 times over the course of 3 months. Right? Like they always say, lightning never strikes the same place twice, right? Like Buddy's house, and it's not like it's a tall house, it's just a normal Balinese house that's just 1 floor, but their house got struck by lightning 5 times over the course of, it was like 3 months, right? Like, and it was during the rainy season, it was like really strange. You know, they were like, what is going on here? So they talked to the priest, and the priest said, you have to have a Mecaru ceremony. They did it, and since then, we're in the rainy season now, so they had it during the dry season because last year's rainy season, it got struck by lightning 5 times. During the dry season, they had the Mecaru ceremony. This rainy season, they haven't been struck once. So whatever happened, it's not empirical that I'm saying this because there's no way I can prove that, but it's just one of those things in Bali that you'll see that your eyes see and your entire being witnesses. but there's no way to explain it using science, right? It's like, how does burying a puppy here and a duck here stop lightning from striking the house? Well, there's more to it than just that, right? But it did, right? That's from my observation. The house hasn't been struck by lightning since. And everyone's been quite comfortable in the home, and things are quite harmonious, a lot more harmonious in the existence of the home. So you can see how lightning strikes could be considered something from Butakala, right? Because they're violent, they create fire, electricity, they kill, they zap things, they destroy everything that's plugged into the electrical outlet, right? You can see that relation with Butakala. So that's an anecdotal bit. Okay, so we have, it involves various types of animal sacrifices. They will most likely always have animal sacrifices. I mean, now, of course, because people would feel bad for animals, maybe people would try to do a Mecaru ceremony without, right? To different degrees. Some places, people will sacrifice a cow, right? My friend, she had Mecaru at her home last Tuesday, and they didn't sacrifice a dog, they just sacrificed one baby chicken, right? Like they still did an animal sacrifice. And then because they didn't want to sacrifice any other animals, they just did it out of, new Mecaru, you sacrifice something. So there usually is, but I don't like to put anything 100%, this is the way it is, because Bali is very fluid and ever-changing, and I'm sure somewhere they would do a Mecaru. I'm sure that somewhere at some time there may be a Mecaru without an animal sacrifice. But as I know, they always have animal sacrifices. So if you can find something without, let me know. That's just me putting a disclaimer out there. So Mecaru is a type of budayanya to appease the Butakala. Okay, so now we're at Pengerupukan, which is the day before Nyepi. It's the holiest day of the year in Bali. It's the silent day. Everything shuts down. We're going to talk about this on Friday. Everything shuts down. The airport, everything, right? Like now they keep hospitals going, but to a minimum, right? Like everything's done to a minimum. You're not allowed to go out on the street. We'll talk about that on Friday, because now we're kind of chronologically working our way up to Nyepi. It's considered the day, right? It's really, really something special to experience, and on Friday we'll talk more about Nyepi. But before that, we have Pengerupukan, which is like the total opposite of Nyepi, right? They have this day where, first of all, at Sandikala, they do a big mass Mecaru across all of Bali. So, as you would understand now from Sandikala and Mecaru, you would know that there would be certain things that happen across all of Bali in every home. They do a type of Mecaru, right? And then everyone together comes out for Pengerupukan, which citation provided, is like a raiding ceremony, right? It's to scare the Butakala away and the evil away, right? So they do it to appease the Butakala, but then they also want to kind of frighten them away. But I've heard it many different ways. It's also a way of, people have told me that Butakala are celebrated, and that's why they hold these effigies of the Butakala, and it's a way of appeasing them. Or another way of thinking of it is a way of scaring them out of town, right? So you'll hear different stories about it, but one thing's for sure, that we know that this is happening before Nyepi every year. And now the Ogoh-Ogoh thing, that's new, right? So what would happen before with Pengerupukan, they would do the purification, which takes place all over the island. They would do the Mecaru, and then everyone would go together out into the streets, and they would bring what's called Obor, right? And then the verb would be Ngobor, Ngobor, right? Obor are torches. They would go out into the street with torches made from danyo, which is like coconut bark, and they would go into the street and they would do an activity called Nguncang. We're going to get into it. So like we've been talking about, It's a big Mecaru all across Bali. So there's many types of Mecaru, like we saw in the bit about types of charu, as was derived from, I forget the name of the lontar, but there is a lontar pertaining specifically to charu ceremonies. And then what they do is they do Mecaru in the home, then they accompany using a massive ngobor, which is a torch carrying, throughout the whole village. They'll go through the whole village. Everybody in the village will gather with their banyag. So they first Mecaru in the home, then they gather together at the banyag with torches, and then they go throughout the town with the torches while they're doing what's called Nguncang, which is Nguncang is, well, we're going to get into that in a second. Ngobor. So this is what you'll see all over the place on Pengerupukan. You'll see people walking around with these torches. So that's the old way. That's what they did before. They had Ngobor, they did Mecaru, Ngobor, Nguncang. Okay, Nguncang. I really like this one a lot, and we'll talk about. I'll talk about why I like it a lot once we get into what's going on now in current events with Ogoh-Ogoh. But Nguncang comes from the words Ngunchangan or Nguncang, which means to hit or to hit repeatedly. And Nguncang also means the bucket that you wash dishes in too. Right? So it's a musical activity that involves the beating of household items, instruments, and other objects that have a connection to traditional life in Bali. Very cool concept, right? So you can kind of see, as we get into it, we're going to see how Gamelan Balaganjur started, right? Which is, if you guys all know Gamelan Balaganjur, that's the processional style. It started as Nguncang. So the items used in Nguncang include, but are not limited to, pots and pans, flower pots, tek-tekan, kukul, and many other things, ranging from very portable items or items that require teams to carry. So they'll carry some very heavy stuff for Nguncang, or they will carry very portable items. It started with people bringing out pots and pans and stuff from their home during the moment where everyone's going around with the torches, Ogoh. There will be some people that they bring out pots and pans and they start banging on them, and then all of a sudden they start making rhythms together, and they start using interlock patterns and things like that are from the Balinese ideas of ubi-ubitan, right, which is these interlock patterns of making music. And then all of a sudden people would start, some people wouldn't just bring out pots and pans, some people would bring a drum. Some people would have a kendang, some banyag would have a kendang. This idea of Nguncang goes back to before there were banyag and everywhere that had lots of gamelan. So this is like before everyone could afford gamelan. Gamelan was a luxury at one point, right? To have a gamelan was quite the thing. So let's look at, so first I'm going to go to the internet here and let's just watch some videos. So here's just a video of a Mecaru ceremony. So we're going to work our way into what we're getting at. So you can see here, they're all in the home. They're processing, right? They're in a procession in the home, purifying. So you see there's a processional element involved in Mecaru. People will go into trance. As you can hear, some people are going into trance. Yep. And so there's an idea of what Mecaru in the home looks like. Different villages, different areas, different regions, these different parts of Bali will have different ways of doing Mecaru. Everyone has their own way of doing it. And that's an example of a Mecaru ceremony. It's a Buteyadnya ceremony. Now, that's not what I'm looking for. Here is an example of Nguncang. I like this one. I pulled up this one because this is one that's a stationary Nguncang, and it's very, very cool to listen to the rhythms and watch what's going on, right? So they have, it's like it's pounding the rice, right? They have the sticks, and they're pounding the grain, and they're getting the skin off of the rice, and I'll find another one. There's another one with a really, really cool groove that I like. Yeah. Oh, cool. Live right now. Hey, that's us. Okay. That be it? Or I think this one we were just watching. Yeah, this one we were just watching. But so you can see what they're doing there is a type of Nguncang, right? They're taking household items and they're hitting them repeatedly. Hit repeatedly. If you look up more, you'll find more videos of Nguncang. Let's see if I can find another, because I really like this idea. Oh yeah, so Nguncang could also have to do with seismic activity too. Nguncang. Okay. See, Nguncang doesn't just happen in Bali. Ah, here's a good one. Check out the groove in this one. I hope it loads. This one is yeah, that's groovy, yeah? So you can see how it functions too, right? Like, you can see where these bit patterns are used, right? Like, sorry, I'm gonna watch that one more time before SmackDown turns on. No. Oh yeah, we got SmackDown. Yeah. Okay, well, I don't know how to go back. Yeah, WWF baby. I'm sorry, WWE. Yeah. You can hear one that's functioning as the timekeeper, right? Is that one in the back there? So that is a type of Nguncang. I suppose SmackDown could be considered repeatedly. Yeah. I don't know why that came up. I guess it's, whose account are we logged into right now? It's not my account. I think probably because Coleman was watching SmackDown. We got related videos. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good. So we got to watch some videos, kind of break the tension a little bit of the intensity. So yeah. That is Nguncang, right? Now, let's look at some of the items used in Nguncang, and we'll talk about it again. So, we have here the most important one, Kukul. You guys have seen them in every temple and every banya you've passed. It's those big pieces of wood, those big hollowed out logs that go bonk, 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 like that. And what's cool about Kukul is a Balinese telephone. It is before there was telephone and things like that here. Before you could send a letter to someone, the quickest way to do it would be use the kukul. In the library, I haven't had the chance to photocopy it, but in the library there's a book about the different sounds the kukul make, and there's a codification system. There's a code to it. I know a couple. There's one for when someone has died. You'll hear the kukul, it goes, and it stops. When people hear that, they all know someone in the banya, right? Because that one will happen at the banya. Someone who's a member of the banya has died, and everyone must send one member of their family to the banya in order to take part in what is going on, preparations for the funeral ceremony. Another one. Here's another easy one. When there's a fire, you'll just hear like that on the kukul. It'll be there's a fire, and then you hear that. Everyone knows. Okay, there's a fire happening. Everyone grab water, right? Like everyone grab water and run to wherever everyone else is running. You know. So yeah, there's another example of kukul sounds. And then you'll hear, that one is signaling that people are going into the temple. You heard that one during Mecaru in Nguncang. For those of you that were there, you heard that cool sound. So there are different meanings to different cool sounds. There's hundreds of them, right? There's hundreds of them, and there's a book about it in the library that I'm meaning to photocopy at some point. And so this is essentially a Balinese telephone. Well, for Pengerupukan, what they do is they take the kukul, they leave the kukul in the banyar and in the temple, and there's someone in the banyar and in the temple playing it, and it's cool too because everything within earshot of each other is playing together. So they're actually like playing in time with each other, but take into account the whole Doppler effect and everything like that. Some very cool sounds come out of that, right? Because by the time the sound gets to this guy's ear, who's 100 meters away from the guy who's playing the kukul down the road, it's gonna be at different times, right? But they synchronize it, and then they carry kukul. So here's an image down here of portable kukul. You can see here there's a hole in it, right? I really like this because we made a video with Tom and Chris a couple weeks ago. We released it on February 10th, and it was about Pengerupukan. It was about Ogoh-Ogoh, and about people using sound systems instead of using instruments to accompany the Ogoh-Ogoh, or instead of things like this. On my Instagram, it didn't go incredibly viral because the filming quality wasn't that great or anything like that, but the message we sent was awesome, right? It got into the hands of the ISI Denpasar and things like that, right? It was like, it got circulated by a lot of people, and what ended up happening was the Instagram channel of Denpasar Kota released this image 3 days later after we released our video. They released this image of one of the things we were talking about in our commentary. We were talking about how, well, at Pengerupukan you can use kukul, you can use all sorts of different instruments, right? You don't need to use a sound system. We're going to get into the sound system thing and the controversy behind it. But I'm just kind of jumping ahead of myself a little bit because I saw this image and I was like, yeah, cool, we kind of started that. Like they made this whole graphic with the cartoon and diagram explaining the kukul, right? It's like, that was kind of us, right? Because everyone else was talking about, oh, well, like they were talking about other things that didn't have to do with the rudimentary idea of Nguncang, right? Because that's what we kind of put forth in our commentary. We kind of said, well, what about Nguncang? What about this concept of Nguncang, just hitting stuff? You don't need to have a gamelan, even if you don't have a gamelan. But if you don't have a gamelan, I'm sure someone would lend it to you, right? It's like there's plenty in Bali, and Balinese people are not stingy people, right? Like they would lend a gamelan to someone, even if all you wanted was a kendang, right? Like someone would lend you a kendang. I got a kendang. If someone asked me for a kendang for Pengerupukan, I would lend it to them. It's like anyone would, right? So anyway, so here's another type of thing that people will bring around. Tek-tek-ah. You see these instruments here. You see them all around. They're a piece of bamboo. Once again, they have the log drum, right? That acoustic hole put in there, kind of concentrate the sound, right? Or sorry, let the sound escape. That's called tek-tek-ah. Very popular in Tabanan, in Krambitan, at Puri Krambitan. They have a chalararan tek-tek-ah for tourists. So it's chalararan that uses tek-tek-ah specifically for tourists, and it has a legong dance with dinner and everything like that. It's pretty good. Yeah, it's okay. It does okay. And then here's another one. Grumbungan. I like this one a lot. I wear one of them for when I do my Bondres comedy thing. I have one that I wear, a small one that I wear around my neck. But these are big, wooden cowbells, right? So the thing that you put around the cow's neck, right? These are big giant ones made from wood that they use as instruments, and then they'll hit them with hammers, or there will be a dangling piece of wood inside of it that they'll shake it up against the sides. So these are another thing you'll see at Pengerupukan.
Sorry to interrupt. Do they have another purpose? Are they actually used as cowbells, or are they?
Well, the smaller ones, yes. Even big ones, they'll have big ones on cows too. Then they adapt it and turn it into something like this, right? By the time they have it painted up all nicely like this and hung with, it's an instrument, right? It's a musical instrument, not just a cowbell, right? But it's from that idea of cowbell, which is also called Nguncang. Sorry. Yeah. And then here we have household items that people would bring around for Nguncang. Right? You've got a pot and a pan. People, things that get involved in Nguncang. Okay, now we're going to get into what we're really looking at here about what's going on with Ogoh-Ogoh now, right? So here, I'm going to go back to this. Let's see if we can watch this video. This is what happened last year at Ogoh-Ogoh. Open. Hope it opens. Did before, yeah. Come on. Okay, it's slow moving. Here we go. This is what happened in Denpasar last year. They're supposed to carry the Ogoh-Ogoh. You're supposed to carry the Ogoh-Ogoh in what's called nagun, right? There's a word in Balinese for carrying something on your shoulder. It's nagun. And you're supposed to carry it. They put it on wheels. Okay, put it on wheels because it saves energy. Maybe their group doesn't have enough people to carry it because it's a very heavy thing. But they said that they couldn't afford a gamelan. But actually, there's a few friends of mine that were kind of investigating it, right? It was more that they didn't feel like it, right? Like, they said they couldn't afford a gamelan, but I mean, use your logic too, right? That's an expensive sound system. They got bins, they got, if you can't afford a gamelan and you can afford that sound system, right? It's like, and then maybe they might say, oh, I borrowed the sound system. Well, why didn't you borrow a gamelan, right? We've talked about Nguncang, and we've talked about how simple it is to do, right? You could go out with some pots and pans or something, right? Find something unique to do. Make new instruments, or just hit something. That's the idea of it. You're supposed to hit something, right? You're supposed to hit something and produce acoustic sounds, not use an electric sound system, right? And I mean, that was Denpasar last year. And I mean, it created a lot of controversy. A lot of people said, oh, well, leave them alone, they didn't know any better, right? A lot of people said, well, I use a sound system because I can't afford a gamelan. And there was a lot of argument happening about it. Then the senator of Bali announced that it's okay if you want to use the sound system, but use Balinese gamelan on the sound system, which I don't agree with, because when we look at the tradition of Pengerupukan before there was Ogoh-Ogoh involved, there was Nguncang. Nguncang came first. Ogoh-Ogoh happened in the 1980s. It started. Right? So we can trace chronologically that, it's not a chicken or egg situation. This is people were hitting pots and pans and stuff before there was Ogoh-Ogoh, so you don't need to have Ogoh-Ogoh using a sound system. And then, yeah, sure, you can use the sound system and use Balinese music on it, but it would be better if you did some sort of actual making of sound activity, right? Whether or not it's musical or not, you're making the sound. You're not just playing music from someone else. So now we're going to start watching more videos and stuff like that. So that's one thing that happened last year, and the backlash from that has been that, that you're allowed to use a sound system, but not electronic dance music, right? all that kind of stuff like that. But I'm guessing this year that unless it's out of protest, there will be no one using a sound system, right? Unless it's someone specifically out of protest using a sound system, there won't be anyone using a sound system.
Because it was widely disapproved.
Yeah, because it was widely disapproved. That's my prediction. but who knows, right? Like, you know, who knows what could happen. But another thing that I noticed, this became very popular last year, but started to crop up the last couple of years. And I think it's kind of cool. We're gonna watch a video for a minute here. And here we have, yeah, Ogoh-Ogoh that move. You know, like robotic Ogoh-Ogoh. It's kind of cool. Now, I mean, a lot of people don't agree with it because Ogoh-Ogoh in the old days, so this is what we have happening now, Ogoh-Ogoh that move, but this is what a more traditional village does with Ogoh-Ogoh. And this village, they're doing what they used to do in the old days. Let me just fast forward it. Here we go. So you see the torches, Ogoh, right? And then at the end, I don't know why they have this synthesizer music. Is that synthesizer or what was that? I don't know. This is what you were supposed to do with the Ogoh-Ogoh. Yeah, they have some sort of overdubbing in the sound. I don't know what that is. It's kind of annoying.
Yeah, it's that synth trombone patch.
Yeah, it's like a synth trombone on one of those chords. Yeah, you're supposed to burn the Ogoh-Ogoh.
They don't burn the mechanical?
No. Well, what started happening, before I got here, what started happening is they started keeping them and selling them. Right? So, very different, right? What they did before was they would burn the Ogoh-Ogoh with the celebration, and now what people do is they keep the Ogoh-Ogoh and they sell it. Like they will have an auction at a banya, they will have an auction where they sell off like an arm of the Ogoh-Ogoh, they sell the leg, right? They sell the head, where they try and raise money for next year's event, right? So I mean, they don't burn them anymore, which is another thing that people with some ideologies are like, well, they're supposed to burn them, right? Which kind of makes sense because that's the whole thing of chasing the monsters out of town, right? Burning them, right? Like, you know, or appeasing the monsters, cremating them, right? Like you can think of it in two ways, right? Like, yeah.
Okay, I have a question.
The fire is that idea of the raid. They're scaring them away. Right? And then also it's that idea that they're done with it and the monster gets burned at the end, right? So it could be they're having a funeral for the monster, they're killing it, or it could be that they're just trying to scare the monsters away. But that is how Ogoh-Ogoh was traditionally done. Yeah, and then, well, hybridity, right? Lots of hybridity.
They do this, really?
Not everywhere, but in some places. But I mean, not everywhere do they burn the Ogoh-Ogoh now too, right? Like so that was last year. Where was that? Of course, it doesn't say where it was. Oh, Oyolali. So I don't really know where that village is. I've never been there, but that was last year what they did, and now this year, and this was last year. But you're going to see a lot more of this year. This is the new thing for Ogoh-Ogoh, is mechanized Ogoh-Ogoh. Which I mean, is cool. It builds up the creativity of people and, you know, gives them something to practice their art form with. Now what I don't agree with is if they just hire someone to build their Ogoh-Ogoh for them. That's not a member of their group, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that seems to keep coming up in my mind is a lot of the sort of more traditionalist conceptualizations of this whole holiday seem to be really geared towards including a lot of people, specifically young people.
Yeah.
Like how we talked about the Rajang dances became so popular because they're not that hard, so
Yeah,
It can kind of be a compulsory thing, and anyone can just kind of get up and do it.
yeah.
Um,
Lawang, another one, with the around.
exactly. In this
Garuda.
case, it's like, yeah, just pick up whatever and hit it. And
Yeah.
Kids get up,
Yeah.
and then if it turns into something really good and musical, great. And the same thing with making these, like you were saying, it's basically youth groups building this.
Yeah,
And if it's all of a sudden you've got to have a computer science degree to engineer this like randomized head.
yeah, make a robot, yeah, yeah.
Like, I can see how maybe that would be like exclusionary, like it would.
Absolutely, yeah, and it also makes other people feel inadequate if they're not doing it,
Right.
right? And there is that element to it, and then also you can see things like them putting more of an emphasis on the idea of wayang, right? When they're doing this, they're making these Ogoh-Ogoh move. Well, then they're making it more like wayang, and they're not focusing on the Buddhakala element of it, right? Like you can see, there's iconography in here, right? There's iconography happening. There's heroism iconography, you know, whoever's fighting who, right? And then you can have the monster, right? But it's that one is about the iconography of the hero, right? Like that is about, and once again, you can see a hero fighting a monster, right? A lot of these are depictions of that, which is more like wayang. And then if they're moving, I mean, that's way more like wayang, when these should be about the Buddhakala itself, because of course they were meant to be burned. Like, and then they start, you know, you need someone with a computer science degree, right? It really leaves out a lot of people, and then it brings into question, is this really activating the youth, or are they just a banyar that is hiring someone, an architect? A lot of people hire an architect, a lot of banyar will hire an architect to make an Ogoh-Ogoh for them. There was one you can see a Garuda Vishnu Nguncang thing going on, or Garuda Vishnu going on, right? Like, they had that with and then here's another, like you can see a lot more of the iconography of the hero. Well, there you go, once again, right? There's the Garuda. And the Garuda monster, right? There's a lot more of this heroic iconography happening rather than this this iconography of the monstrosity. And which is another thing that becomes problematic for people who are judging competitions, for example. Like I was talking with Cadet Winyanda, he's the head of the Pedalagan department here, and I do a lot of comedy with him. He was saying that he prefers it if it is focused on the monster. He judges a lot of the competitions for Ogoh-Ogoh, right? Which is another reason why they're involving all of these mechanical elements, because it's competition. And how do we get a leg up on everyone else? We have a mechanical Ogoh-Ogoh. Ours is a robot, right? And can, you know, learn your name or something. I don't know, right? Like, and so you can see that element of what's happening, and then that's the problem or the issue of the mechanized Ogoh. I like it if the people in the banyar are making it.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of just like hiring one architect to make it.
That's fine.
You know,
if they're pitching in to do it, then fine.
Yeah, that's right.
Do what you want.
And they are. Now here's another thing that has become problematic. Ogoh-Ogoh in politics.
Oh,
Yeah. So this year, because there are competitions for Ogoh-Ogoh all throughout Bali, right? And especially in the Badung Regency, because that's kind of the center of where the population is. Like, I mean, there's Denpasar, but Denpasar is like in the middle of the land of the Badung Regency, right? So it's like, in the Badung Regency, they've decided that they're going to disqualify any Ogoh-Ogoh that has connections to politically charged events. Because, I mean, you would see, especially last year when it was the governor elections were coming up, you know, like people would, during Ogoh-Ogoh, bring the banner of the person, you know, the banyar with their banyar youth group, they would bring the banner of the party that they're supporting for the election for governor, right? And it's like they're trying to take politics out of that. There's been a lot of activism against that. There shouldn't, and I agree with that. There shouldn't be politics
I thought you were gonna say they were burning effigies of certain candidates or something.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Who knows? Yeah, well, maybe that's what they were afraid of this year because they wanted to, there was talk of stopping Ogoh-Ogoh altogether for this year because now it's the presidential elections and maybe they were afraid of, yeah, burning effigies of certain candidates for the election, right? Like, not just the presidential election, but they have the elections for the members of parliament on the federal and provincial and local levels too, right? So there's a lot at stake. And so they tried to, by doing that, or with that in mind, a lot of people tried to stop Ogoh-Ogoh this year. They're not stopping it, right? Like, when I'm on the mayor of Denpasar was like, no way you're not stopping Ogoh-Ogoh, right? He declared it in January, I believe it says. He declared in January, he declared that Ogoh-Ogoh will happen and nothing's stopping Ogoh-Ogoh, which is good. But that's in Denpasar. In some places, they are actually not having Ogoh-Ogoh. You know, like in some places, they're not having it this year. And I mean, that's sad, right? Like, because they're afraid that what will happen is they will be directly involved in political activities, and they want to keep it separate, I suppose, right? Like, there shouldn't be Ogoh-Ogoh being involved in political activities, but I mean, no matter where you are in the world, people will try and politicize anything, right? Like, you know, people try and politicize Twitter, right? It's, you know, it's inevitable. But yeah, so now what they've decided this year is, you can see here from the Dinas Kebudayaan and the Bureau of Culture for Badung, the Badung Regency, in the competition, any Ogoh-Ogoh that has any relation to politics will be disqualified. Right? They're going to not allow, they inspect the Ogoh-Ogoh before it goes to the competition, and they are disqualifying anything that has any relation to politics. It's not like, okay, this party uses the color red, this party uses the color yellow. You know, it's not going to be that.
So it's you making the Ogoh-Ogoh decode.
Yeah, it's like, or whatever, you know, like this Ogoh-Ogoh is, yeah, exactly. You know, like the hero in this Ogoh-Ogoh looks like the president, or the hero in this Ogoh-Ogoh looks like the opposition, and it's, you know, so they're making sure that doesn't happen this year. But that's kind of where it's come to now. And so I think now, because we're at the end of the slideshow, it's time for discussion. What do you guys think? I mean, we've got another 20 minutes left.
Can you zoom the last one?
What's that?
The presentation for
The last slide.
the last slide.
Oh, yep. Oh, you're photographing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay, I suppose. It's all on YouTube. But yeah.
It's easier.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's fine. I stand by what I say anyway. I have references, yeah. Okay, so Dio, you got a comment, question?
Yes. I think that if Ogoh-Ogoh involved with politics, it doesn't separate it from carnival.
From
Carnival? Really?
Carnival, no, the idea of carnival.
Because-
Good point.
Because it's very similar also the things that they are doing, but in Carnival they involve in politics. They
Yeah.
have I don't know if it goes in the past like this, but yeah, it must not involve with politics.
Really, really good point.
It's gonna
you
be
brought up.
Carnival after.
Yeah, it is carnival. Does everyone know what Dio means by the idea of carnival? Right? Like, carnival is a place where traditionally it's not just something for celebrating, it's something where identities can get hidden, right? Like, you know, the identity of the person who made the Ogoh-Ogoh it's not printed on the Ogoh-Ogoh made by this person, right? So they can put whatever ideology they want up there and hide hide the name of the artist on there. They have the name of this Spaniard, but they don't have the name of this person on it, right? And with carnival, the idea of wearing masks, right? This you can see it all throughout literature, all throughout Europe, all throughout Asia, all throughout the world. This idea of carnival. Look at Mardi Gras, right? Like your best example of carnival you know, it's like, or one of them you can think of it that's all over pop culture, right? People use it as a way of hiding the identity, right? Like look at carnival in literature, right? Like we have the idea of the Count of Monte Cristo, right? It's like it's in there, you know, where his enemy's son goes to carnival and hides his identity and becomes just a commoner, right? And like things like that. It's that idea, yeah, being able to hide your identity in carnival, and the idea of mass celebration. And then if you mix politics with that, it becomes very dangerous, because someone can put out an idea that maybe they don't even believe. They're just trying to incite that idea within the public sphere, and then other people kind of catch on, and no one knows who came up with that idea, so it can be very subversive when you're mixing politics with carnival. A lot of coercion, right? Things like that can happen. You can think of social media environment as one big carnival right now, you know, like that's what it is, right? Like, yeah, and look at when you look at what happened with the American election in 2016, right? Like there was a lot of elements of carnival involved in that, in the social media sphere of that, and a lot of coercion and very subversive elements using masks to present ideologies that they don't necessarily believe, but to incite results that they wanted, right? Like, and that is why it becomes dangerous. That's a really good point you brought up, Dio. Yeah. Who wants to run with that? What are your thoughts on what you've seen so far with Ogoh-Ogoh? We see there's a lot. Yeah.
I have 3 questions actually.
Yeah.
Sacrificing animals.
During Mecaru, yeah.
Do they kill the animal first, or do they bury them like?
They kill it.
They kill it first.
Yeah.
Okay. During the ceremony when they burn Ogoh-Ogoh, do people also get entrance?
Possibly, yeah. Possible. I mean, like, not guaranteed, but possible. Yeah, and it's yeah. So with the animal sacrifice thing, yeah. So it's not just they bury the animal alive, which is good, and it's not like the kind of thing where yes, every home does Mecaru, but it's not like you'll see at Ogoh-Ogoh, you won't see every little kid carrying around a baby chicken to cut it. You know, it's like you won't see that, right? Like the Mecaru element happens in the home, but it is one big Mecaru throughout all of Bali, because it is to appease, balance, ward off malevolent forces in preceding Nyepi. So here's the Ogoh-Ogoh of Mungu. Actually, the village of Mungu is one of the most famous places in all of Bali for Ogoh-Ogoh, where I live, because of the fact that we have 14 banyag. So most other villages will have, you know, 2 or 3 banyag in the village, right? Mungu has 14 banyag that are making Ogoh-Ogoh this year, and a lot of them are already done. That one was Banyag Gamba? No, that wasn't Banyag Gamba. There's so many I have trouble remembering which one's which, but like I've looked around and they're pretty awesome this year. Not all of them are using robotics and movement, and some of the ones that are very simple. Like I saw one last night that had like it looked like a ship's helm wheel on its back. It was just spinning, right? And that was the only movement the thing was doing. Really good. They're all really, really good in Mungu. And I would encourage you to come to Mungu to see Ogoh-Ogoh if you want to see really, really good quality. That was Banyag Gamba. That was our group. And I would encourage you to come see it there. But I mean, of course, traffic, right? So what's going to happen is the roads are going to get shut down at Sandikala, right? At the moment of Sandikala, police are going to shut down all the roads, except for some key routes. And then once the Ogoh-Ogoh once it's dark, they will shut down the roads where the Ogoh-Ogoh are going to be. And then, I mean, after, there will be a window from late night, usually around 1, 2 o'clock in the morning until 6 a.m. where you can get to wherever it is you need to go for your feet. But after 6 a.m., you gotta be inside. Yeah. Yeah, you can see there's a job class, right?
You mentioned something about competition. Do people win?
Yeah, I mean, they win bragging rights. Sometimes there's cash involved.
But it's at the sort of village level.
They have it throughout the Banyag before, or throughout the Kabupaten. Sorry, they have it throughout the Kabupaten. Sorry, I lost my English for a minute there. They have it throughout the Regency, right? Which is, they'll have judges go around. So each village will have their own thing, and then submit that to the Regency level, and then that'll get submitted to the provincial level.
But they don't march them more than once.
No, they march them once, but someone will go around, people will go around and judge them before, Pengerupukan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they'll have teams going around judging them, and then they'll put them together, and then they'll have that for Pengerupukan. People will know at Pengerupukan who won.
I see.
Yeah. That's why they have regulations too of how early you can start, right? You're not allowed to start for a lot of these competitions. You can't start more than a month before. So you have to there has to be like a 30-day window that you're making this in. And that's why it will be a 24-hour round-the-clock thing for a lot of these organizations, because they're not allowed to start until 30 days before you feed.
Some of them kind of procrastinate too, I was noticing.
Yeah.
There's a banya near us that apparently is a really good one. But like I think it was just a week or two ago I drove by and I remembered I had been there a night or two before and there was nothing going on. And then and then the next few days it just exploded.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, because then all of a sudden maybe they're waiting on materials, or it is that whole, rubber time.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it could be the whole rubber time thing, which is very true, It's like, same with the whole idea of, someone in the class, the last group asked, like, well, what time exactly do they do this Mecaru before they go out? I go, it's not Nikala, right? Sometime during that moment, like, I don't know, like, it's kind of that rubber time thing, It's not gonna be like exactly 6 o'clock, everyone has to do Mecaru, right? Like, it was just be sometime, maybe even after it's already dark, because they were busy, like maybe it's already dark and they just, I'm busy and I can just Mecaru now, right? It's like, but it will happen, yeah. Yeah, and it's the same with the whole, you can see a lot of Ogoh-Ogoh Saka'a, right? Which is like a group, right? That then will save it to the last minute and then it's just go. Yeah. Which happens in my class too with a lot of people. They'll save it to the last minute and then, like, I just spent the last 24 hours writing all my assignments, right? It's like, well, you could have started it, 3 weeks ago, right? Like, you wouldn't be so stressed out over the last 24 hours, right? Like, yeah.
I think it's true because I went on the night ride at 3 a.m. past Banyag, and there's some people that
Oh, yeah.
like but I was like, these people are not asleep.
Oh, they're working, man, because now they have a schedule. It's like they're running it like a business, They make a schedule of whose turn it is at this time, when's your shift, right? And then like they get like 3-hour shifts or something like that, and they'll organize it their own way. But there will be a manager involved in that, right? Like they'll have it. They're doing it like a business, So they will have someone who's a secretary that's in charge of making sure all the materials and blah 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 arrive on time. They'll have and the food for people and stuff like that too, right? And they'll have things like someone who's a treasurer, right? And stuff like that. Oh, speaking of treasury, this year, which was really good, I really like to see the current Bupati of Badung, Giri Pasta, he gave to every Ogoh-Ogoh Saka in the region, he gave them 40 million rupiah to make the Ogoh-Ogoh. That was really cool, I was like, good, you're supporting the people to not just, he's not like just giving it to them to go hire somebody, because it would cost a lot more than that to go hire somebody, but he gave them enough to help them make it on their own, and make it a good one, right? Like 40 million rupiah, that's 4,000 Canadian dollars, right? Like, it's enough money to help buy food for the people making it, and then so every group has gotten in Badung, has gotten 40 million rupiah to manage however they wish, which is really cool. I like to see that. I like to see that the current Bupati Giri Prasta is making efforts to really support independence in the arts community. It's not like he's creating an organization where it's under the control of one group of people and they have all the money, and if you apply to it, you can maybe get money from them. No, he's not doing it that way, right? He's giving artists, whether they have a degree or not, right? Whether he's giving them money and saying, okay, manage this yourself, as long as they've made a proposal and they put it together, it's like as long as they've proven where the money's gonna go, he will support. And I really, really like seeing that, that like, he doesn't care about whether they're famous or not, whether they have a master's degree in the arts or not, like, he just wants to see people making arts and being involved in the culture, which is really, really cool. I really like that he's been doing that. I'm a big fan of that. And but he's not making them put his name on the Ogoh-Ogoh, right? Like, he doesn't care about that, right? Like, he doesn't care about who they're voting for. He's just doing it to give them money, and he's decided that in the Badung Regency, that anyone that is putting a politician's name or face on any of these Ogoh-Ogoh will be disqualified too. So, even though he's giving out this money, he's not doing it for politics, right? He's doing it to support the arts, right? Like, that's the difference between, I suppose, some people would give out money to an organization that's making Ogoh-Ogoh so that they would put their name on the Ogoh-Ogoh and carry their banner around, which happened last year, right? Like, that's not going to happen this year, which is good, But on the other hand, what is bad about it, and I'm very sad to see, is that some places are just not allowed to do it. Like some smaller places they just have decided no. Like, you can see it, like there was a video that went up yesterday on Jubali of a bunch of kids that made an Ogoh-Ogoh in Kudiri. They made an Ogoh-Ogoh, and then because of their village saying no, it's a politics year, no Ogoh-Ogoh, you gotta burn it. Right, so you saw that video, yeah, and feel bad for the kids, right? Like, they've been working just as hard as everyone else, and then they've been trying, they're becoming artists and they're developing, right? And it's like, becoming sculptors. And then but yeah, it was just kind of shut down by their village, and that was sad to see. And what I'm hoping is that this year, well, I know that this year we won't see connection to politics, or very minimal connections to politics in the Ogoh-Ogoh. I'm really hoping for that, and I'm really hoping that we don't see any of this again. And I guess we'll just end it on that, because I really think that's a funny video. I really hope we don't end up seeing this again. Because, yeah. And some of my friends who investigated that last year found out that the group that was doing that was just like, they were doing it because they thought it would be funny, but also that's what they say, like they did it because they thought it would be funny.
But this is just from a group. It doesn't came this thing to the Banjar and they decided.
Well, yeah, that group was from a Banjar. You can see they're all wearing shirts representing their
Banjar. They said, okay, we do it like this.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, their Banjar allowed them to do it. Yeah. It was really crazy last year. Actually, I wasn't in Denpasar for it, but at Pengerupukan and some other places in Denpasar, there was lots of groups that did that. They weren't the only one. It's not just, I don't want to put it all on these guys in the video there. That's just the best video I have of it, like, these guys aren't the only ones. There was lots of them at Pengerupukan. It was like a big discotheque, right? Like it was like there's videos all over the place of people that brought sound systems, and instead of having their performances of their dance and gamelan creation, because what every group will do is it's not just a way to make an Ogoh-Ogoh, they will have someone that composes a new creation, someone that choreographs a new creation, right? Like this is a big deal for young artists, right? Like, and they do that. Every banyag, every Ogoh-Ogoh group will be making new creations, but it was very much and what happened last year was a lot of people just like bring a bunch of booze and party it up. Bring a bunch of booze, some bins, bring some big sound system, right? Like, and party it up, like. So that's not going to happen again this year. I think last year, there's a lot of factors that went into that happening. The idea that, things are becoming mechanized, right? So people would see machines in the Ogoh-Ogoh, and well, why don't we use machines for the music too, right? Like, there's that whole, how do you say that, copying element to it, right? And then the factors of people being busy, like it is, because it is very difficult, especially for people that live in Denpasar, to be able to, dedicate that time to it, because life is a lot busier in the city than it is in the village, right? Like in Nguncang, now they're busy. They're as busy as they get because they're preparing for Pengerupukan, right? Whereas, like places like Denpasar, some areas, well, it would be a lot of added work to the day to create a new creation and have it perform. Yeah, there's a lot of things that went into that happening. Yeah. So what? Any other observations about, any questions about Ogoh-Ogoh, about Pengerupukan, about Mecaru, anything that's a little muddy? Good. Okay. And so I'll just write down what we're going to talk about on the test. When you talk about when we do the test for next time, it'll be after Nyipi, right? You'll talk about the 7 elements with the 3 systems they fit into. And when if you talk about Pengerupukan, you'll want to talk about Sandikala. Well, of course, I'll put it all in order, right? So you'll want to talk about Pengerupukan. You'll choose that one, right? Pengerupukan. You want to mention Sandikala. You want to mention Mecaru. You want to mention Nguncang. And then, of course, Ogoh-Ogoh. So, as you know now, after today's lecture, we kind of, I strategized as best as I could the order in which we went through these things, because we start big, right? We start big with Pengerupukan. A lot of people think they start big with Ogoh-Ogoh, right? Because that's the nomenclature that has become famously associated with Pengerupukan. But it's really actually Pengerupukan is the day. Pengerupukan is the Hari Pengerupukan, right? It's the name of the day rating, right? Where they're chasing the monsters out. So Pengerupukan is a day, right? It's a day. Sandikala is a time. Mecaru is a type of ceremony. Nguncang is a type of sound or activity, right? And then we have Ogoh-Ogoh, which are an artifact. Artifact that is also an activity. So we have these things, and you can work them all into the 7 elements of culture and the 3 systems in which they function.
But going to do it the same way, like last time, last test.
I don't know when I wrote down for the next test. We'll probably do it after Nyipi. So,
I can tell you when.
can you tell me when? Yeah, when did we say it
It's
is?
the 15th, but we go
March 15th? Okay, so 14th, 15th is the next test, which means it will be, yes, the week following Nyipi. So we'll have, tomorrow, we'll have our lecture about Nyipi, and then the week after that, we will have our next test, and there won't be any choose which ones you understand the best, it will be talk about Pengerupukan and talk about Nyepi. Yeah, just the two, yeah. Because I suppose, yeah, there's only today's lecture, Friday's lecture are the only ones between the last test and Nyepi. And Friday, I will have your tests back from last week. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, guys. I hope you understand Pengerupukan a little better. Yeah.
Cheers, bro.
Okay, and make sure you sign both attendances, the one from last week's class that kind of got kibosh put on it, and then the one from today. And if you see any of your friends that didn't do the test, tell them if they want to do the test, bring me a doctor's note. Yeah, and if not, then tough, yeah. Yeah. Okay, thanks guys. Okay. Isn't that got broadcast? Yeah, it did.
Yeah, just thinking of it. Yeah. Oh, good.
Okay, thank you for watching.